In other top stories now, it's more than 4 months since parts of Bangkok, the Thai capital, turned into a live firing zone. Thai troops had fired bullets and tear gas while some protesters known as the Red Shirts fired back and burned buildings, including shopping centres, a television station and the stock exchange. That violence has ended in the main, but many anti-government protesters are still unhappy. Many have protested outside prisons, calling for the release of their colleagues held inside the country. The Red Shirt leaders are facing charges of terrorism. Others are accused of breaching emergency laws which remain in place in the capital and in other provinces. Well, that allows the Thai security forces extra powers to stifle dissent. And yet, we heard from the Thai leader, the Prime Minister, that elections are possible in early 2011. To give us some insight into that, we're joined from the UN in New York by Thailand's Foreign Minister, Kasit Piromia. Thank you very much for joining us on the BBC.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Do you believe that early elections are possible early next year?
Well, I think so, because all the independent commission, especially on the political and constitutional reforms, are working very hard, and then we expect to have their findings and their recommendations by the end of this year. And after that, I think it could be tabled to the parliament, to the public in general, and maybe it would allow the Prime Minister to call for a new election.
Now, what the Prime Minister said was that they could take place if the opposition Red Shirts proved they can remain peaceful. But as you know, the tensions haven't gone away. There were protests again this month. What conditions are you putting down?
I think the opposition have been working very hard inside the parliament. So I think we should keep politics inside the parliament. There are no reasons for any more protests on the street, because there is a consultation, there is dialogue going ahead. The economic situation is excellent. And then we all know about the grievances, about the defects of the present constitution and so on. So we can work together to overcome some of the outstanding problems and let politics be back inside the parliament.
Well, I think what the Red Shirt protesters would say is that the politics is also inside the prisons. That's where their leaders are. And while they remain in prison, they will still take to the streets.
Well, I think they have committed wrong according to the law. Some of them have recourse to the use of armed elements in their protests and so on. I think one has to separate, I think, freedom of expression and participation in the whole democratic process from the use of armed elements and violence and so on.
But what else? Some would argue that there's a need to make some concrete moves before any elections toward what's being described as reconciliation, but yet the opposition and their supporters see no move in that direction, not a genuine one, they say.
I don't think so. I think the Prime Minister has talked to the opposition leaders many times. There is an informal talks going on. One cannot mix up, I think, the illegal activities from the legal ones. I think there is a process that one has to observe. For those that have committed something wrong, then there is a judicial process. So separate the judicial process from, I think, political reconciliation, and the need to move forward inside the law, and even to have the new elections and so on. Political dialogues have been going on all the time.
As you know, Thailand's image took a beating with these images of your troops opening fire on the streets. You're now meeting world leaders at the UN in New York. What are they telling you? What are their concerns?
Not anymore. I think that was a problem maybe 6-7 months ago, but we have made an extensive explanation to the world leaders all around. I have written individually to each of the foreign ministers around the world explaining the situation. We are a democratic government. We are a democratic society. We observe the law. Everything has been done under the law, under the confines of parliamentary rules and so on. I think that is clearly being understood by the world leaders around the world. There's no more doubts about the democratic direction of the Thai society.
As you know, 7,000 protesters took to the streets on September 19th.
Well, I think protests sometimes can be an expression of freedom, but there is no need for the cause to violence. I think two things have to be separated. And I think that's a legitimate right of the government to ensure the safety of the public as a whole.
Thank you very much, Foreign Minister, sir, for joining us here on Impact Asia.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll have